Matthew chapter 4. Then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward hungered. And when the tempter came to him, he said, If thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread. But he answered and said, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Then the devil taketh him up into the holy city, and setteth him on a pinnacle of the temple, and saith unto him, If thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down, for it is written, He shall give his angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. Jesus said unto him, It is written again, Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Again, the devil taketh him up into an exceedingly high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world, and the glory of them, and saith unto him, And these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. Then saith Jesus unto him, Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Then the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him. I've seen so many people try to interpret this, and they all come at it from a worldly perspective. I've seen what the religious sector of the world has to say about this, and I think they're skirting around the truth because there's very much elements of the truth in what they are saying, but I don't think that they have seen it. Or, you know what? I don't like to think this way, but maybe they have seen it and are withholding it in order to collect more people to their congregation, to their mission, to their ministry and whatnot, and help their progress and help them grow even more than the growth they've had over the thousands and thousands of years. I don't like to think that way about anyone. I like to think that, you know what, they haven't seen it, but there's spiritual guidance and inspiration and imagination working through them that maybe they're not aware of. And they do have elements of the truth with what they're saying about this verse here. I do want to say this, that if you think that there is a devil, a Satan, and a Jesus Christ in Matthew's telling of this temptation in the wilderness, you're looking at it from a historical perspective. You're looking at it from an external point of view. And that's not what Matthew is intending here at all. Matthew wants to put you in the first person perspective of both of these characters, Satan and Jesus Christ. And that is exactly what is happening here. Quickly, just to share my experience of this, when it happened to me, it came as a revelation. It came through a very lucid dream, a vision, call it, or a revelation, as I said. And I found myself in this very dark place. There was commotion all around me, but it almost felt like I was in the corner of this, where all the commotion was taking place. And I was in the background and in a very dark place. And someone said to me in that background, now having gone through, if you saw my videos where I explained my experience with Job, the gates of death and the shadow of death, and having gone through confronting this dark presence within me, which is what most people call in the spiritual circle here, the dark night of the soul. Having confronted that, I was no stranger to the darkness, and the darkness that I saw that felt to me like I was pushed in a corner in this dream. And I heard a voice and it said to me, you have to go out there and you have to go to the highest point out there and you have to fall down for the people. I was very lucid in the dream and I knew exactly what I was doing. And I walked out of this dark corner and I found myself coming to the opening of a tent. It looked like one of those retreats where there were tents set up and everything. Only it almost looked like a circus tent. Only the crowd, as I was nearing the opening of the tent, seemed to be below me. And they seemed to be seated in a kind of theater or in a kind of theater or a kind of coliseum kind of setting. And they were all yelling and chanting for me, not by my name, but they knew that I was going to be walking out of the curtain, and they were just like cheering me on to come out from behind the shadows. And so I exited out of this opening of a tent, and I saw this large population of people all seated down in a theater in a Colosseum-like setting. And I found myself walking on a plank. And I walked to the edge of the plank. And I saw myself standing there and looking at everything all around me. And everyone was cheering for me. And I felt famous and recognized and popular. And I felt confident, full of courage. And I knew nothing could hurt me, even if I fell from up here. At the edge of the plank, I ended up turning around, walking back, heading back into my corner. And just before I woke up, I uttered these words, "Get thee hence." And I ended up waking up from my dream. That was my experience of the wilderness. And it came during my second spiritual awakening. And it was around 2018, 2019. It possibly could have been very close to the summer of 2019, or it could have been in the late winter of 2018. And I remember this vividly and clearly because when I woke up, I understood this verse and I understood that it was me. I had already started seeing scripture unfold in me, and I was playing the parts of everything that scripture was unraveling and unfolding in me. From Isaiah to Ezekiel to Amos to Moses to Jesus Christ to Paul to Peter I was experiencing everything, and it was happening all at once. And I noticed now being able to compare the darkness of this temptation and how I fought it off with the darkness when my second spiritual awakening started happening for me and confronting the shadow of death in it being me. Recognizing also in this New Testament revelation that was happening to me that even the darkness and the voice in the darkness telling me to go out there and fall was me. I understood clearly that all of this takes place within us. The unfolding of the Bible happens within us, and we all play the parts of the Bible that strengthen us and build us up spiritually and allow us not to be discouraged by the separation that we face in the world, the separation between our worldly selves and our spiritual selves. There is no other way of really looking at this. We can break it down if you want, and the voice of Satan that Matthew here has created, the voice of Satan could easily be a man troubled by his thoughts. I don't know how many times I was confronted by people and told, oh, you know what? You're not the Son of God. You're not the Son of God. Jesus Christ is not in you. We're waiting for Jesus Christ. What makes you think that you are better than Jesus Christ, the one that we are waiting for, the human from 2,000 years ago that's going to come back, pick us up and take us into his rocket ship and whisk us off to Never Never Land? What makes you think that you are greater than him? I'm not, but I am one and the same. So are you, so are they, and so is all of humanity and the whole population of the world. How many times did this not play out exactly as Matthew wrote it here? These are conversations that an awakened person faces and has to deal with. And you don't know from which influence of his life that they are coming from. Are they coming from his parental figures, his relatives, and his relationship to his cousins and whatnot? Are they coming from his friends, his neighbors, strangers that he meets on the street and he's trying to share the word with? These are all kept in the heart and brought back to memory when this moment, this wilderness, when this temptation comes upon you in your spiritual awakening. Another way of looking at it is because it's all Old Testament references. And I've pulled up the King James Version that doesn't have highlighted where you could find it in Deuteronomy or where you can find it in the Psalms. But I had already discovered the pattern of the Old Testament and the New Testament that I didn't need it. But when I was looking up this verse now, I just noticed that a couple of online Bibles do tell you that it's from Deuteronomy 6, Psalm 91. However, the King James Version that I pulled up here doesn't have that highlighted in brackets. I saw this a long time ago, and I didn't need the aid of having it in brackets for me. But the other thing is, it could be coming from the confusion and what, say, the clergy of the time in Matthew's era were saying, especially referring to like John 9:22. If anyone confesses that they are the Christ, they are to be put out of the synagogue. There was many people experiencing Jesus Christ. They were awakening to the Christ within them and the creative power within them, and were doing miracles. And that is a no-no in the eyes of organized religion. You can't do that. You can't show off your spiritual gifts. You can't try and take our population that has built up our organization away from us by showing people that they can do this. We need to keep people hostage, and we need to enslave them into a worldly belief system. Therefore, that external Jesus Christ from 2,000 years ago it needs to be part of our narrative so that we can keep going and moving forward and moving on, and people will come with us when he shows up in his special rocket ship with his special flares and whatnot to take us off to that special heaven. You can look at it that way, as the confusion of the clergy and the religious sector of the times and whatnot, and now realizing that God is an internal growth, an internal revelation, and it is a constant unfolding that happens and takes place within man, and having to deal with the influences of the outside world. And one of those influences being, you have this knowledge and this wisdom. Why don't you just come with us? In other words, bow down to us, become like us, and you will have all the riches and all the world and all of that. People who had a voice back then and were able, and even nowadays, not even back then, but just people have a voice and are able to collect a large gathering around them and have them hanging on the edge of every word that they say, are able to also manipulate and deceive to further whatever their needs may be at the time. So there's a lot that you can look at here. The influences of parental figures, family, friends, and whatnot. The influences of the time with the religious sector and the external ideology of the time, and the religion and whatnot. And you can also break down what is happening here in the symbolism of these verses also. Fasting 40 days and 40 nights. 40 days and 40 nights doesn't necessarily mean it's actually 40 days. There is some sort of symbolic reference to 40, but I steer away from symbolism. Symbolism is nonsense, complete and utter gibberish and nonsense, and that can also become a habit and an addiction and lead you down a very, very terrible road. So I stay away from that. But what I've noticed now, in having understood the Bible the way that I understand it, and I'm not asking you or telling you to understand it this way, it's just the way that I understand it and saw it. This just only means a period of time, and you don't know how long that period of time is. It could be 40 days, or it could be 40 years, or it could be 3 years, it could be 2 years, it could be 2 weeks, it could be a day. It only stands for a duration of time. It's filler for the storytelling. It's a good way of speeding up the storytelling and bringing you, closer to the climax and to the end of the book without having it become long and drawn out and et cetera, et cetera. The other part of the symbolism here, as you can see, is that the desert is this is the one thing that I found when I was researching this, that some of the worldly religious systems have right and skirt around the issue, as I say, because like I said in the beginning, I don't know if they see it or they don't see it, but they're close. They're all around it. That they say that the desert represents deadness. There's no life and there's nothing thriving in it. And they're absolutely correct. It is barren. It is naked, and there's nothing of life thriving in it. And it is dead. What else is there to say, right? Now, the opposite of that is heaven, is Eden, as some say on the online commentaries and whatnot, is Eden. And they're absolutely right. A land that is thriving and living, and life is just flowing from it like milk and honey, and just flowing with like love and peace and happiness, and everything from plant life to the environment to nature, everything all around it is just thriving. That is inside of you. There is nothing in these verses that is external. There is all inside. The barrenness that is inside of you. That seeking that you do in the world to create yourself, to become what you are, to constant seeking in the world. At some point, that seeking stops when you come to a spiritual awakening. And it can happen through reading the Bible. It could happen through listening to someone talk to you and not understand and not realizing that the person next to you is spiritually awake, is Jesus Christ. But you were withheld from the people that you came to and started speaking to, and they didn't recognize you and didn't see you. But the minute you started talking, they recognized you. They saw your spirit. It was your spirit talking, your Father that is in you speaking through you. And they understood and they got it. And that is when the seeking stops. That is when you get it. But the whole time you're in the world and you're separate from your spiritual self, amnesia, complete and total amnesia that you are a spiritual being. It is always constant seeking. And sometimes it takes a very traumatic event. Sometimes it takes a darkness to bring you to that awakening. And sometimes it takes even possibly a near-death experience to bring you to that awakening. But you come to that awakening and you realize that that separation and that seeking in the world is the barren desert, is the dry, it is the empty, lifeless, void of any happiness and joy, only artificial happiness and joy of the world, of the amnesia, of the separation. That separation is also Satan. That is you in the world, doing good and doing right, being an angel of light one moment and then devouring like a lion another moment. That is the ego. We all have the ego, and sometimes it serves us for good and sometimes it serves us for bad. And other times it projects and causes conversations and thoughts and has us in a contemplative mood over the pros and cons of our life. Now, when you come to a spiritual awakening, this will be very obvious, because one of those things that you will want to do is to kind of distance yourself so you can understand what is happening and going on with yourself. And at the same time, face that darkness, face the separation that was your amnesia in the world, face that separation. And facing that separation, the influences of the amnesia and the influences of the world and the artificial aspects that you were going through and seeking in the world will start playing out to you as though personified as someone else. And you may have dreams of this. You may just have thoughts constantly entertaining your mind, choices, reflections, memories. And they will always, in a way, play out like this. And then sometimes this verse here in Matthew chapter 4 will play out in real life, as I said, as it did for me. And when you talk about your spiritual awakening, you talk about the God that is in you, you will have people who will come at you and be very, very disgruntled and affected by the things that you say, that they will turn around in their unencouraging and horrible, terrible, monstrous voice and say to you, what makes you think you're better than anyone else? If you think you're better than someone else, then prove it, show it. Or you'll have other people saying, hey, you know what? We can manipulate this gift. Follow us. Become like us. Fall down on your hands and knees and follow us. And all the artificial amnesia and separation of the world will be yours to have. You will encounter people like this. These parallels are just not for visions only. These parallels are in your life. And when you come to an awakening, you'll be able to recognize this and see it. When you start reading the pages, you say, holy smokes, my friends confronted me like this. My parents confronted me like this. I had a guy who was willing to, help me grow in this and expose it and become rich and famous. You will encounter these people. The wilderness is the world, is separation. It is the amnesia. It is the sleep. That's what it is. And through the sleep, seeking things out, the artificial things of the world, all of that seeking leads to a moment of awakening. Now, there is seeking in awakening, absolutely, but there is also settling, and there is also saying, get thee hence. It is also recognizing that it's not only just in the Bible, but The Bible, the New Testament in itself and its authors and what they wrote, these grand paradoxes here, are a reflection of the sleep, a reflection of the artificial world, are reflections of separation. But they are also a call to unity. They're also a call to identification. They're also a call to recognition of what you truly are: immortal, divine, spiritual, a son of God, no separation between male and female. I think Isaiah nailed it, when he said, "Call my sons and my daughters." And a lot of the New Testament has such a masculine feel to it, but make no mistake about it, sons of God is a reference to both male and female. And the parallels and the reflections of the Bible are there to show you the once upon a time sleep, amnesia, separation, and the call to identification, unification, and recognition of what you truly, truly are. If we look at the other stuff in this verse here, we'll see it says that the tempter came to him and said, "If thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread." In other words, he's telling him, if you think you're the Son of God, make a magic trick for me. Do something magic for me. Do something sleight of hand so I can see it. But the reference to stone and bread here is also a reference to transformation from the sleep and the amnesia that I'm talking about. That stony heart that David was said, replace it. Replace my stony heart and my fleshy heart and make it new again. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if David said or if that was just the author in the inspiration of God, and God saying to David, "I will replace your stony heart with one of love and kindness and whatnot." He used the word flesh, but you get what I'm saying. And bread is a reference to the inspiration, to the spirituality that you are. And bread is also a reference to your knowledge and your wisdom of spiritual growth and understanding. It is the manna that came down from heaven. And when you awaken, walking asleep in the world, you don't think anything of it. You just think that, this is the world, this is how I have to do, this is the belief system of the world, this is the programming and the conditioning of the world, and this is what I have to do. But when you awaken, you literally are coming down from heaven and awakening spiritually. I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. Everyone is already there. It is this separation and this lack of clarity with identifying with the spirit, and the separation between the world and the flesh and the spiritual being that you truly are. And that is the reference in the Old Testament to the manna coming down from heaven. Also, bread is the spiritual knowledge and understanding and growth in spirituality. It is life. It is the body, as they say, but it is not in a religious or ritualistic or ceremonial way a representation of a loaf of bread as the body of Jesus Christ. "I will send a famine upon the earth, and there will be a hunger for the word of God." That is the bread, the word of God. The bread is also representative of the spiritual body and the spiritual understanding and the wisdom and the knowledge and the inspiration and imagination that comes along with it. I paraphrased Isaiah, but I think you could find it in Isaiah. I'm pretty sure it's in Isaiah. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. But that is what the bread is. And then you are told, and then he responds and saying that it's not important, the bread, all the time, And he's making a reference when he says that every word that proceeded from the mouth of God, he's making a reference back to the Old Testament again, telling you that the word is nigh thee, even on thy lips. I hope I got that right. I believe that's what it says. And he's telling you that, again, it is such a wonderful book, and it is such a grand paradox, and it's such a pattern-building, puzzle-making beauty that I don't even know how to put it into words. You also see here with these verses that it's the past, it's the present, and the future, but it's always present because it's always you. And it's always you being contemplative and choosing and selecting what suits your life and your spiritual growth, and coming to that point where you're weighing the pros and cons and you're saying, no, that's not right. No, that's not right. No, get thee hence, And this is sorting through the sleep and the separation of the world that now is coming to confront you. Again, it's the ego telling you, don't leave me, don't leave me, don't leave me, like do all the don't leave me, and you have to weigh the pros and cons between the separation and the unity, and you have to confront them and call them out and get them out of there. So you see a future and a past taking place here by pointing you to the word is nigh thee, even on thy lips. And also showing you the outcome of this in that verse that says, the letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life. So you could sit there all day and read and look through it and not see anything. And we have examples of this that's been taking place for 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 6,000 years ago, right up until now. And they'll continue taking place for another 100,000 years, constantly scouring the book, and not seeing anything until one day, because it could very possibly happen, an awakening through reading the Bible. Even if it takes 100,000 years, eventually you're going to see it. But the letter killeth is what this is also saying also. Don't be wise, don't be smart, and don't think that everything is in the book. You search the scriptures all day long thinking in them there's eternal life, and it's they that testify of me. The word is nigh thee, even on thy lips. So man liveth by everything that proceeded from the mouth of God. Your mouth, my mouth, our mouth. When we come to a spiritual awakening, we weigh the pros and cons, and we tell the cons to get lost. We don't want them anymore. We're not interested in them. Get thee hence. And we don't need to prove anything. We don't need to test anything. We don't need to become magicians and make magic acts and do certain things for people. That is foolishness on the sleep part of the individual coming at you, asking you to prove something that cannot be proven. Your spiritual experiences can never be proven. However, to you, they can never even be doubted. They are truth. They are real. They are life. They are what you are. They are your bread. They are your life. They are the words that proceed from your mouth. Love, kindness, forgiveness. Do unto others you wish done unto yourself. Love thy neighbor. Love thy Lord thy God. Love thyself. These proceed from your mouth in that way, and nothing can hurt you and harm you. And you don't have to be some kind of showboat and perform a magic act like a dog would, playing dead and rolling over and whatnot. You don't have to do that for anybody. That's a con. Get rid of it. I owe you nothing. Fame, success. Get rid of it. I owe you nothing. It's only temporary and it's fleeting. Temporary and fleeting, and success belongs to the young people, and recognition and fame. Your shelf life is between 18 and 35. After that, it's expiration time. It's expiration time. Yeah, you can go on and do better things and build up another enterprise or whatnot. But the truth of the matter is it's a young person's amnesia state of seeking. It is a young person's game. And you recognize this and you say, it doesn't serve me. I'm content being happy. That is my riches. That is my fame. That is my recognition. Sharing with people who will hear me and listen to me. That's enough. That's all I need. Because all of that other stuff, the separation from spirituality, is fleeting. And it is for a very short period of time. Andy Warhol, 15 minutes of fame. Nowadays, you'd be lucky if you get 15 minutes of fame. But this whole verse here is all taking place within you. That fasting is always about lessening and lessening and lessening the habits of separation and amnesia, and becoming more and more and more awake, and awake to only wanting good qualities in your life, qualities that you can enjoy and appreciate and love. And everything else, the noise, the influences, all of that stuff, who cares what they think? Who cares what they say? Who cares what's coming? You know what is happening to you. You know what has happened to you. Therefore, you are content and you are happy. speaking about your spiritual awakening. You are content living your spiritual awakening. You are content using your creative power. And make no mistake about it, you don't have to say anything. People will find you because you did not choose me. I chose you out of the world. People will find you. People will recognize your creative power. People will see your good works. People will see the transformation that is happening in you. So you don't need to face anyone about who you are and what you're going through, but your own self. You will confront yourself in the wilderness. You will have to face the barrenness of the amnesia and separation with the awakening, spiritual growth, and what you truly are spiritually. Both of these two have to confront one another. What else can I say? This is Nick. This is Tea Talk. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys next time.